Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Cryptid Combat. This matchup, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the number one seed, the man to beat, versus Australia's own Bunyip.
Horrendous.
Yep.
Horrendous name.
True. Honestly, Australia, say what you want about it. They could have picked a better name. The Aboriginal people there were slacking.
I mean, let's be honest. Australians come up with awful names for a bunch of things. All Australians.
Yeah.
Are you talking about a speedometer? You're going to call it a speedo? Really? Like what I wear to a public beach? Crazy.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. Sure thing, buddy. Sure thing, pal. All right. Let's get into this. Here's the bracket. We're on Sasquatch versus Wild Card. If you haven't been keeping up, this is the wild card. Bunyip's the wild card. You can see the other matches. We already went over those in a previous video. However, I'm still excited about them. However, let's just get into it. Sasquatch, number one seed. Everyone knows what this is. Everyone knows the Bigfoot. Most popular cryptid. Has infiltrated all of media. What's there to say? Somewhere between 7 foot and 10 foot tall ape, just wandering around the forest.
Potentially the most likely cryptid to exist out there, aside from something like the thylacine, like an extinct animal that might still be out there. This guy, big feet, big hands, even a bigger heart. Some would say This guy is usually known as a lover, but in this instance, he will have to take on the role of a fighter, and I can appreciate that.
For sure, he's certainly. I don't think that we never really stopped to ask him if he wants to do this. He probably doesn't. He probably thinks of himself as sort of like protecting over the other cryptids, but now he has to turn against them because of my bloodlust.
Yeah, and I mean, say what you will, but capitalism.
Yep. I mean, look, I have dollars and cents to make from this, and so we're pitting him against the Bunyip because it's fun.
Yes.
Let's go back. Before I move on, do you want to share? So, because Sasquatch has many variants, we could say. I think the Yeti goes a little too far to where I would consider that a different thing, but it's still like a similar thing. There's so many variants and different sightings of the Sasquatch. Like, you've probably seen it, like, everyone, when I say you, I mean, like, the audience member here. You've probably seen it, once or twice. It's so common. But there's a specific variant in Florida, the skunk ape, swamp ape, whatever you want to call it, and in a previous recording, before everything fell through, you explained a story about it. Would you like to share that here?
I would absolutely. Like we said in the bracket discussion that we had the other day, listen, Bigfoot gets around, all right? Now, we kind of went over it in the bracket as well. We are not... Yeah, we're not considering this guy, a trans-dimensional or a trans-time traveler, all right? This guy, just a guy, okay? And much like me, I'm just a guy. I got cousins all over the place. I got a sister. I got family. They live all over the place, right?
Yep.
I'm originally from Florida, all right? Down in Florida, we have this legend of the swamp ape or the skunk ape, depending on who you're talking to. That guy, look, Bigfoot, big feet, typically get kind of a bad rap from their smell. A lot of people know Bigfoot by his smell. It's not a pleasant smell. Totally fine. However, this guy down in Florida kind of takes that to the extreme. I don't know if he's ever heard of degree antiperspirant or anything like that. I was out hunting frogs and snakes and stuff like that with one of my buddies, classic Florida man stuff, and suddenly we heard this kind of, horrendous walking noise. But before we even heard that, it was a smell. And it smelled like BO and skunk. The worst BO you ever smelled in your entire life mixed with skunk. Absolute horrendous smell. This guy comes out of nowhere. We look up, and no, he's not super big. I mean, Sasquatch, he gets a lot of love because he's, could be 7 to 8 feet tall. However, This guy, not super tall, and also stunk really, really badly. Kind of like comic accurate Wolverine. All right, not a great guy to be around. I don't know if you've ever seen a chimp do territorial behavior where they're ripping up grass and beating down on the grass. That's exactly what he was doing. Kind of showing off for us, I guess. We were both terrified because even if this is not a mythical being, this is still what could be a chimpanzee. And chimpanzees are not fun to mess around with. I don't know if you've ever had any personal experiences with a chimp. Not a fun animal to be around whatsoever. And what they could do to a person, let's just say, not pretty. These guys go after your hands, your feet, your nose, and then finally, believe it or not, they go after your genitals. They go after everything that you hold dear. That's not a joke. It's disgusting. So it was scary enough just to see a primate in front of me. Finally, it took off after being a big showboat back into the swamp. So, might not have been a Sasquatch, might have been a skunk ape, might have been a chimpanzee that got out. It is Florida after all. Overall, though, 0 out of 10 experience. I would much rather see his Pacific Northwest cousin.
Yeah, honestly, what that makes me think about is like, in this let's say hypothetically, what you saw was a skunk ape or Bigfoot. Let's say they're similar, and that was like, if reports are to be believed, they're usually larger. So what if that could theoretically be, a youth or something? And if that were the case, I think that the whole idea sounds a lot scarier if you're imagining like a 7 to 10 foot tall chimp rather than what's pictured here, because that would mean it's a lot faster, agile, and probably more aggressive than what we typically think of Sasquatch. However, we're gonna have to kind of default to the typical Sasquatch belief here, because we don't have any. Not that we have documented evidence of a lot, but it seems to trend more to this more humanoid, plodding ape than a more chimp-like creature. So that's what we're going to go with in the official documentation. However, that does make me wonder how accurate people's recollections of this creature could be. There's a fly on my head. Alright, we're moving on. Alright. Here's the strengths and weaknesses. Sasquatch, he's pretty strong. He can take a lot of punishment. And, being a humanoid, we can only assume he has a high ability to think and use weapons on the fly.
Absolutely. This being a primate, after all, more than likely, he's also got something that 99% of the animal kingdom doesn't, which is opposable thumbs. That alone, massive force multiplier. Massive.
For sure. This is big oversight on my part. I forgot to notate that. Weaknesses. I have on here
get the refs involved.
Limited agility, and so this is where I noted that we would imagine if let's say the more chimp-like build was a factor, that would limited agility would probably not be notated here. Even with the size, you'd think you'd probably be a bit slimmer but faster. But like we said, we're going with the more classic, hefty, big guy. Like I'm almost thinking of like we're talking about like Brian Shaw here. Like that's what I think of when I think of Sasquatch. It's just a big, strong, capable dude. But he's not gonna be able to be doing those fast twitch, quick turns on his feet, changing angles, changing direction real quick, and also just not having claws and some of the other weapons we're gonna see later, such as like literal like toxins and even energy beams, kind of makes his natural weapon seem a little limited in comparison.
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, this is a big guy. He's going to be able to take a hit. He definitely does not have a glass chin. On top of that, when we're talking about, kind of documented evidence to put into these simulations, we're talking about like the Brian Patterson footage is what we're talking about. That's a dude, This is a featherless biped. This is a man, all right? So at the end of the day, what I saw and what this guy is, totally different things. Absolutely.
Yep. That's true. Let's move on to the Bunyip. So this picture here is one of the most famous ones. However, the bunyip, I have not seen a single consistent explanation of what it is. And if you look up pictures of it, you will find about 20 different designs. Uh, because we just know it's an aquatic thing that's sort of or like maybe like feline shaped a bit, but like it's, you know, described as having fur, but being like amphibious. And it's cool in concept. I honestly, like, personally, I think my enjoyment of the bunyip, I know some people might like that. It's kind of hindered by the fact that we don't really have, like, it's clearly the mythology of the Aboriginal Australians. Like, it just kind of depended on what area, what tribe, you know, what people were describing it. They would just describe it differently. And I think that kind of, for me, takes away a little bit because we don't have like a more consistent lore. Like when we compare it to something like the Wendigo, which it seemed like was pretty consistently documented. Um, but
And I mean, you know, just to give him credit, he is mysterious. You know, chicks dig, as you can see in this image, chicks dig a mysterious fellow, right? Now, I remember it being described as something like a crocodile meets an emu meets a seal, kind of hybrid, which would make sense for the area. Down south, they get these things called leopard seals, and if you guys have ever seen a leopard seal in real life, you know it is absolutely nothing like the seals we get inside the United States. That thing's 15 feet long. It can open its mouth way wider than your head is. It's insane. On top of that, crocodiles not super endemic to that area. However, they more than likely had to come on down through about the same passage as all the rest of the Aboriginal tribes came down through. So more than likely they had their fair share of run-in with crocodiles. Now they're having to deal with leopard seals. And then suddenly they got this mysterious fellow showing up, stealing off some of their ladies, stealing off some of their men. Really not a great time for the Aboriginals of Australia many hundreds of years ago. Totally understandable. He caused a lot of chaos, a lot of mayhem. He's kind of coming in as an underdog, I'm going to be totally honest. But overall, mysterious guy. That kind of adds to my liking of him. Nobody really knows what he looks like. He keeps to himself. He keeps his heads down. And on top of that, I mean, if he's got a Rolex, we can't even see it because it's underneath the waves inside of this image, right? So he's super humble, super mysterious, and my cat's currently trying to steal my headphones from me.
So I have to say,
so that's all I got to say.
I did not know. I've now sidetracked to Google to see what a leopard seal looks like because I did not know, and I feel like this is one of those things when you learn about like you know when you first learn about how big like a bear actually is, you're just like you're kind of like, you know, there's no bears near me, but you still kind of just get like, you know, you're like, oh, I'm like not safe in this world. And as I look at these pictures of these leopard seals of how big they are, and just like I'm wondering how I went this long without knowing that this type of beast exists.
Oh no, they're actually terrifying. I saw one in real life when I was down in Australia, and that was like out of this world. Because I'm used to like the harbor seals, our sea lions, like the cute guys, right? Mm-hmm. That thing's not cute. That thing wants to kill you.
I'm almost tempted to believe.
I mean, it's fine.
That the bunyip is just straight a 1-for-1 leopard seal that swam into a swamp. like
I mean, you know what?
Close enough.
And if it is, I mean, good for him. Absolutely good for him. You know, it's too cold down in Antarctica. I've always said that. I think penguins, I think they're major aura farmers. That's it. That's all they do. Like, you're going to tell me that you're going down there to survive. You're only going to have one baby a year. And if that baby rolls off of your feet, the least flat thing on a human or an animal's body, if it rolls off that for even a second, it's dead. Yeah, no, they're just doing it for the clout at that point.
Yeah, they're playing it on like the hardest difficulty. Like everything is wrong about it. Okay, let's go back to the bunyip. It's like the leopard seal, but it has legs. It can actually walk on land like pretty steadily. However, it'll be slower on land. We'll just go ahead and move into the strengths and weaknesses. That's the weakness I remember. It's slower on land. It doesn't have the speed and agility. But however, the point that the reason that matters is because when we're in the water in the swamp area, it's really hard to deal with. That's its natural domain. Strengths, its bite force. I mean, you just see how big its jaws are. Anything with a bite force that big, or a mouth that big, you can imagine you don't want to get a hold of you. It's very durable, has a thick hide, and in its own terrain, it can blend in pretty well. Sort of crocodile-esque. Again, with weaknesses, it's slower on land, and it'll be easier to attack when it's not under cover.
Absolutely. But, going into these matchups, we've got one battle happening in the Sasquatch's home range, one inside of the Bunyips, and then one on just plain even ground. We're really going to have to see how well these strengths and weaknesses play out for these two combatants.
For sure. This is a map. This is actually like the land that we live on. Like, this is actually a map that kind of demonstrates those areas.
No way.
You can see the Sasquatch is in North America. That's where he is, generally. And Bunyip is southeastern Australia. So honestly, they're in the exact opposite parts of the world, theoretically, according to this map.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this map, even just for a couple of seconds here, I'm noticing that one is definitely kind of in the eastern hemisphere, the other one in the western. Another really key point that I'm noticing that I don't think a lot of viewers at home are going to notice. One is actually above the equator, and the other one is below the equator. And so this may play out in a way that you don't expect, just based on the geographical location of these creatures' homelands. So this could be. I know this is our first matchup, but this could also be our first tie. Because they look pretty similarly away from the north and the south. But we're gonna have to take it to the tape and see what goes on.
For sure. With that being said, it's up to you to do the analysis on what you think from the information we provided, who you think is going to win, before we go ahead and get into our simulation.
Absolutely. They didn't call me the expert analysis for no reason. I am, without a doubt, the only human being on Earth qualified to make these analysis and try my best to translate them to the unwashed masses. So I'm going to do my best here. We've kind of gone over the strengths and weaknesses of both of these guys. A major weakness that Bunyip's going to have to deal with is not only the lack of water in two of the fights, and then Sasquatch is going to have to deal with water in one of the fights. But another main issue is I worked as a veterinarian technician, a vet tech, for quite a while, and I always heard it said, and I believe this for everything that it's worth, I would always rather deal with an aggressive dog than an aggressive cat. Now, let me translate this, all right? You look at Sasquatch. Sasquatch has a right hook. He's got a left hook. One says hospital. One says morgue. He's got a left kick. He's got a right kick. That one says tombstone. The other one says gravestone, right? It's the exact same thing. He's also got a mouth. If we are thinking about this as a primate, primates do have pronounced canine teeth, all right? He has 5 weapons, right? Now let's look at Bunyip real quick. Sure, he's got a piercing scream. Sure, he's got a lot of agility inside the water. But let's take into account, he has little feet. He's only got one major weapon. As long as Sasquatch is able to deke in, get up nice and close, that guy's not going to be able to turn around on Sasquatch with very much effect. With that being said, the second that Sasquatch puts his little pinky toe inside that water, I think it might be wraps for Sasquatch. So we are going to have to see as this goes into the match. We're sitting courtside right now, so I'm really excited to see these two titans of the industry take it. I'm really excited.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let's stop with the talk and let's just see what happens. We're entering the battlefield. We're starting with round 1 in Bigfoot's home field.
Let's go, Bigfoot.
The deep forest trembles as Bigfoot emerges, its towering frame blending with the trees. From a nearby riverbank, the Bunyip bellows, trying to draw its foe toward the water. But Bigfoot stands firm, using its raw strength to battle the creature with bone-crushing strikes. Bunyip lunges again and again, only to be met with the unstoppable fists of the forest giant. With a final ground-shaking slam, Bigfoot roars in victory, winning round 1.
That's actually them two on the screen. Like if you guys are watching right now, that's those two on the screen. That's not AI.
This is not AI. This is real. I'm recording this right now. Round 2 in the Bunyip's home field of the swampy Australia. The swamp is a graveyard of silence as the Bunyip stirs beneath the surface. Bigfoot wades cautiously, every step sinking deeper. Suddenly, the water erupts as the predator strikes with terrifying force, dragging the forest tight under. Bigfoot thrashes and pounds the beast with mighty blows, but the swamp itself is Bunyip's weapon. With a crushing bite and a violent pull into the depths, Bunyip secures its vengeance. Bunyip winning the second round.
You got to give it to Bunyip on that one, man.
For sure, that
really
one
played to his strengths there.
It's just not really even a fair fight at all at that point. But here we are in the neutral arena, the tiebreaker to figure out who is going to advance. On an open plain beneath the moonlight, the two titans collide in a brutal clash of raw strength. Bunyip snaps and thrashes, but without deep waters, its power is diminished. Bigfoot presses forward, each strike driving the creature back. After a grueling battle of endurance, the forest giant lifts the Bunyip high and slams it down in a display of primal dominance, ending the fight. Here's
There's the Bunyip.
Yep. Boom.
Oh, whoa. We got to call the fight there.
I cannot believe
these refs doing?
This. All right. Here's the simulation, the stat sheets if you want to see specifically. On the Sasquatch home field, Bigfoot won 67 out of the 100 bouts. However, it was more one-sided in Bunyip's home field, which makes sense because there's just not a lot Sasquatch can do when the Bunyip, is using the water under cover and able to drag him and basically drown him. But in the neutral arena, it was very close, but Sasquatch won more of the bouts. And that kind of leads us to Sasquatch winning 2 out of the 3 bouts. However, the interesting thing to note here, Sasquatch technically won less than half of the total bouts. However, due to our rule set, he won 2 rounds and wins the match here.
We do this quite a bit like the Electoral College, also known as the best voting system in the entire world. Yeah, he wasn't technically first past the post in all of the swing states, but he secured enough in order to win victory here.
Yep. I gotta say, we definitely...
Another thing I want to...
Go ahead.
I really want to point this out to the viewers. Even in the neutral arena, my buddy there, he said there weren't deep waters, to help camouflage and help out the Bunyip. And there wasn't. We actually, at the bottom of the arena, we did fill it with about 2 to 3 millimeters of water. So he did have enough to actually get some movement advantage. And at the same time, it's still kind of... he got his toes wet. And even with that, Sasquatch, he was up to, almost his ankle. That does hinder him as well. So it wasn't a completely, neutral arena because this guy is primarily aquatic. We didn't want to take him entirely out of his comfort zone in this neutral arena. So we did kind of give Sasquatch a little bit of a handicap, and we kind of buffed the Bunyip just a little bit in that last fight. But even still, man, I mean, a crushing defeat for the Bunyip, a crushing defeat for Australia, and what else can I say but USA.
For sure. And honestly, the one thing, obviously, the simulation showed us specific bouts, not representative necessarily of the entire field of bouts. However, the one thing I noticed is that in the first round, Sasquatch was able to simply, he put combinations together. He boxed them. And then finally, he ended up finishing it off with a slam. In the Bunyip round, it simply was just bite and drag. He dragged him under the water, and that's why it's so dominant there. So, if you look at that, that's way more one-sided than the other 2 rounds, despite Bunyip losing overall. And in the neutral arena, it was a slugfest. But again, honestly, the thing here is, obviously I knew Sasquatch is strong, but lifting a creature that weighs over 1,000 pounds over his head, you got to think that all the other cryptids are really, they got to be wondering if they can really match up to that power.
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple of guys courtside. Mothman's currently sitting next to me, and he's a little bit worried. If he makes it into round 2, he's gonna more than likely have to go up against Sasquatch, and that's a little bit scary for Mothman over here. Mothman, no, he's declined to comment right now, so we'll have to get back to him later, probably before his match.
Our winner of this round is Bigfoot.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Winner of not only this match, but also winner of the national, I want to say international World Cup hide and seek champion. That's one thing you can give him. Another thing that you can give him is, this is, I said it earlier, in the words of Diogenes, this is a featherless biped. This is a man, which means the IRS has probably been tracking this guy for years, and they've never been able to come across him. So just for that, as being a red-blooded American, that's something I can really get behind with Sasquatch as well.
For sure. You gotta love seeing Australia down. And you gotta love tax evasion. However, next time, we have an interesting bout. The Flatwoods Monster, seated at number 9, versus the Beast of Geva. I don't remember how to pronounce it. It's the 8 seed. It's French, I think. There we go. The Beast
Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
it's in there.
Hang on, let me try one more time.
There we
we go.
Yeah. That's it. So these two will face next time. And I gotta say, just off the surface level, can't think of a more strange matchup of, creatures of opposites, if that makes sense. But I'm excited to see how this one goes down.
Absolutely, man. It is going to be, I think it's going to be a battle for the ages. In my opinion, it might, not might, I think this is going to be a heck of a lot closer than Sasquatch versus Bunyip. Both of these guys coming from, the same hemisphere, it's gonna be something here.
For sure. But if you want to find out, you're going to have to tune in next week.